Okay, let's start with something to think about. What guilt or maybe what shame are you still carrying around with you? And uh, how would your life actually look different if you really truly believed God has wiped it clean? It's a big question, isn't it?
It really is.
Because, well, let's be honest, we all carry these things, these invisible burdens at some point or another. We let past mistakes, maybe perceived failures, or even just old hurts kind of weigh us down. They can just linger, you know, in our thoughts, sort of defining us, telling us who we are, keeping us feeling like we're stuck under their shadow.
It's an incredibly common human thing, that feeling. Shame especially has this sneaky way of latching onto us. It tries to shape our sense of worth, often from the inside out.
Yeah,
It's almost like we let our absolute worst moments, or maybe a whole season of messing up, become our entitled identity.
right.
But what we're exploring today is this profound idea that there's a completely different way to be defined, a way that offers, well, incredible freedom, real freedom.
Okay, so let's unpack this a little. This common human tendency, this allowing past issues to define who we are. It's usually not just about one single incident, is it?
No, rarely.
It feels like something much deeper, more
Huh.
pervasive, like an internal struggle. So many of us battle with these memories, things we've done, maybe things done to us.
Yeah, absolutely.
And those battles can genuinely dictate how we see ourselves, how we, interact with the world, what we even believe we're capable of.
It's like you said, they become anchors.
Yeah, anchors, holding us back.
That's a really powerful image, anchors, because it's not just about acknowledging a mistake happened. It's about how that moment or that period can be allowed to completely redefine your whole being, making you believe that that failure, that shame is who you fundamentally are, instead of just, an aspect of your story, your journey.
Right.
Which naturally raises a huge question for all of us. How are we truly defined? Is it by those past actions, those anchors, or is it by something, well, much more foundational, something more enduring? And, crucially, how do we break free from those anchors?
And right there, in that question, is where we find this just incredible, powerful declaration. It offers a profound answer, a completely radical shift in perspective that speaks directly to that identity question.
Yeah.
It says, I, even I, am he who blots out your transgressions for my own sake and remembers your sins no more. Wow. Hearing those words, you can almost feel the weight starting to lift, can't you?
Oh, definitely. What's truly revolutionary about that statement is its sheer power, its completeness. When it says blots out your transgressions, think about that. This isn't just like covering something up or a temporary fix.
Right, not just painting over it.
Exactly. It speaks to an active divine act to completely remove those sins. Imagine like a ledger where every mistake is written down, right? And then suddenly this permanent eraser just sweeps across it, leaves absolutely no trace. It's just gone.
Gone. And then the second part, which for me is maybe even more staggering, remembers your sins no more.
Yes. That's huge.
That's not just like passive forgetting, like it slipped God's mind.
No.
It sounds like a deliberate act of choice, an act of divine will to no longer hold those past things against you.
Decidedly.
Not bring them up for judgment or accusation. It's like the record isn't just erased, it's removed from the file entirely, at least in terms of its power to condemn you.
Absolutely. And that phrase, for my own sake, that's really key here, isn't it?
Yeah, tell us about that. What does that mean?
Well, it means this whole act of forgiveness, this blotting out, it isn't contingent on how good we are or, whether we've somehow managed to earn it back.
Okay.
It's rooted purely in God's own inherent character, in his nature, his boundless mercy, his unwavering love.
So it's about who he is, not about what we've done or haven't done.
Exactly right. And that makes the forgiveness utterly complete. It's unearned, it's not partial, it's not temporary, and importantly, it's not something we can accidentally undo or diminish by messing up again later. It's a full, total mercy. And that right there lays the foundation for you to truly have a clean slate.
A clean slate. That phrase, it brings up something important. We often think of forgiveness as just, getting a second chance.
Yeah, that's the common idea.
Like, okay, you messed up, here's another try, but try not to mess up again. Okay.
Right, like you're on probation or something.
Yeah, exactly. But what we're talking about here, this divine declaration, this profound truth, it feels like so much more than just a do-over, more than just a conditional retry.
You really hit on something crucial there, because God's forgiveness isn't merely a second chance, it's actually a new beginning.
A new beginning, okay.
And that distinction, it signifies a fundamental transformative shift. It's not about getting another shot at the same old life, carrying the same old labels.
Wow.
It's about being given a completely fresh identity, an entirely new potential for living. His love doesn't bring condemnation, it brings full restoration.
Restoration, not just pardon.
Exactly. So when he declares you clean, when that slate is truly wiped, there is absolutely zero need to keep living like you're still stained by the past.
Zero need.
Those old labels, they just don't apply anymore. Your past is definitely part of your story. We can't erase history, but it ceases to be your definition. It fundamentally changes who you are now and who you can become tomorrow.
I think these truths really land when we see them lived out, when we see them in action in people's lives.
Absolutely. Stories make it real.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Let's look at some real-life journeys. There's this compelling story from 2023 about a man in North Carolina. For years, he'd been totally estranged from his church community. Why? Because of a significant moral failure. Can you just imagine the weight he must have been carrying, day in, day out?
Oh, the guilt, the shame. Constant companions, I'd imagine.
Yeah, that internal battle, the expectation of judgment from others, maybe mostly from himself. And then he decides to go back.
Wow. That takes courage. He must have been bracing himself for the absolute worst, surely.
You'd think so.
That crippling expectation of condemnation, that deep-seated feeling of being, permanently branded by your past mistake, that's exactly what shame feeds on.
Hey.
It whispers that you'll never belong again, that you're just damaged goods. It's a powerful narrative to fight against.
But here's what happened. He walks through those church doors, and he wasn't met with judgment, no cold shoulders.
Really?
Instead, he was welcomed back, like genuinely welcomed with open arms. And maybe even more powerfully, he was reminded, clearly and lovingly. Someone told him, "You are not the sum of your worst moment."
Oh, wow.
Just think about that phrase, not the sum of your worst moment. That simple, profound statement just cutting through years of maybe self-condemnation.
That's grace in action.
It really was a tangible experience of grace. Not just for him, but probably for everyone there who saw it happen. A moment of real welcome, real restoration. It showed them all that a new beginning wasn't just a nice idea, it was actually possible.
And that story, it just beautifully illustrates how a community, when it truly tries to embody this kind of grace, this unconditional acceptance, how it can reflect that divine truth back to us.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a personal revelation for him. It was a lived experience with others, showing him he was being redefined by forgiveness, not by his failure.
It showed how powerful it is to be seen for who you are becoming, not just who you once were.
Exactly. That kind of acceptance helps dismantle the shame that really thrives in isolation, doesn't it?
It really does. Okay, then there's another journey, a woman in Arizona. She was battling a long-term addiction.
Okay.
And as part of her healing, her recovery process, she started doing something quite unique.
Yeah.
She began writing letters to her younger self.
Writing to her younger self. Interesting.
Yeah, think about that for a second. Consciously addressing the version of herself that was maybe trapped in that struggle, carrying all that immense weight of past actions, that negative self-perception.
Yeah.
What do you think that act of writing actually did for her?
Well, that sounds like a truly profound act of self-compassion, maybe. And a deliberate way to engage with her own past.
Right.
Moving from just sort of passively accepting those old labels addict, maybe others, to actively challenging them.
Challenging.
Yeah. When she put pen to paper,
Sure.
she wasn't just, recounting history. She was wrestling with it, processing the emotions tied up in those memories, and I imagine declaring new truths over those old destructive narratives. It kind of allowed her to externalize that internal battle and maybe gain some perspective.
And what she shared about it is so powerful. She said, each letter became a release.
A release.
A reminder, she said, that I'm forgiven and don't have to keep living under the label of my past. She was actively taking apart those old labels, piece by piece. She wasn't just hoping for a different future. She was, in a way, writing herself into a new identity, one rooted in her forgiveness, not her addiction.
That example just illustrates so clearly a personal, active application of embracing this forgiveness we're talking about.
Active is the key word there.
It really is.
Yeah.
It shows how an act like that, writing letters, maybe it's journaling for someone else or engaging in really honest conversation, how it can lead to a tangible release, a release from those old labels, from self-condemnation.
Yeah.
It's a definite shift in self-perception and identity, moving from seeing yourself through the lens of addiction and past struggles to seeing yourself through the truth of being forgiven, being made new. It's about taking that divine declaration we talked about and actually applying it, weaving it into your own story day by day.
Okay, so this brings us to the practical side.
Yeah.
What does this all mean for you listening right now? What are the real practical implications of waking up tomorrow morning and truly, deeply believing that God has wiped your slate clean?
Mm-hmm.
If your past is part of your story, and it always will be, right? It shaped you, but it's not your core identity.
Yeah.
What actually changes in your day-to-day life?
Yeah.
How do you practically live out this freedom, especially when those old whispers of shame or doubt inevitably try to creep back in?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The practical application. It really comes down to a deliberate act of letting go.
Letting go.
Moment by moment. It's about releasing that lingering guilt, that shame that we often, almost unconsciously, cling to. Even when forgiveness has been freely offered,
Yeah.
if you truly believed, like deep down in your core, that you were forgiven, that your slate was genuinely wiped clean, your life would look different. It just would.
How so?
Well, you wouldn't be constantly weighed down by those past mistakes, right? Or by that paralyzing fear of them being exposed or maybe defining your future. You'd be free. Free to walk confidently in grace, free to pursue opportunities without that baggage, free to engage in relationships more openly without the shadow of past failures looming.
Okay, but like you said, letting go.
Hmm.
It's often easier said than done.
Oh, absolutely.
So when those old feelings do bubble up, when a memory of a past failure flashes back, what are some actual practical steps someone can take? How do they actively choose to live from this new identity, especially when old habits or those negative inner voices try to pull them back?
That's a critical point because it's usually not a one-time fix, is it? It's more like a process of rewiring your brain almost.
Rewiring, yeah.
So one practical step is to consciously identify those old labels or those condemning thoughts when they arise. Name them.
Okay, just notice them.
Notice them, yeah. And instead of just passively accepting them as truth, you challenge them. You challenge them with the new truth you now hold. You can literally say to yourself, okay, my past action was X, but my identity is not X. My identity is I am forgiven, I am new.
So actively counteracting the thought.
Exactly. Another thing is maybe engaging in acts of grace yourself, showing compassion to others, forgiving others, just as grace has been shown to you. That actually reinforces the truth in your own mind and heart.
That makes sense. Living it outwards reinforces it inwards.
Precisely. It's about consistent, deliberate self-talk rooted in this new reality. And like we saw with the man in North Carolina, leaning into communities or relationships that affirm this truth about you, not your past mistakes. It's really a daily decision, sometimes an hourly one, to align your internal narrative with the divine declaration that has been spoken over your life.
That's the profound truth, isn't it? The one we really want to leave you thinking about today. Your past.
Yeah.
Yes, it's part of your story. It's a chapter, maybe several chapters that shaped you.
Mm-hmm.
But it is absolutely not your identity, not who you are at your core. And in that truth, you are truly free. Free to live a life unburdened.
So embrace that freedom, embrace it fully, let it transform not just how you view your past, but how you see yourself right now in this moment. And let it shape how you choose to live your life moving forward, unchained from yesterday's failures, confidently walking in the reality of a completely new beginning.
Which brings us right back to where we started. That question for you to reflect on. What guilt or shame are you still carrying? And how would your life truly look different starting today if you deeply believe God has wiped it completely clean?